Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. My name is James Jimmy Hills. I'm the host of Java with Jimmy. I'm also a subset brand of Java After Dark. And tonight, in collaboration with Ruar Music, with special thanks to Dee Dee's Cry as well, we are sponsoring a conversation tonight, continuing a conversation around Black men, and particularly tonight, the power of Black men. A couple of months ago, I had the opportunity, thanks to Toy Burton. I want to give her special thanks for this connection and the work that Dee Dee's Cry has been doing. Brother Vlad will talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, but really want to thank this queen that has stepped in a space where we may have not been leading. And through that relationship tonight, out of a conversation, here we are this evening, getting ready to talk about the power of Black men. I'm going to try to do it once and he'll correct me when he comes in. But brother Iymedu, I think I got it right. I've been calling him Brother I. After we met, he reached out and just shared that he wanted to continue the conversation. And so we're going to do that tonight. I've dubbed it a national conversation. We have a brother here from Cambridge. We have a brother here. And jokingly, we'll have some light moments tonight. We have a brother here that I already told that I wanted to be able to say that he was in Pennsylvania. And anyway, and there's another brother, our brother I, who's going to come in a second, who is from Ohio. And so I got to meet him through Toy Burton and Dee Dee's Cry at the Black Men's Mind, Body, and Spirit Summit a couple of months ago. So brother I, it is such great opportunity to have you on screen. And we've talked plenty of time. Heck, welcome to the job after formally here, brother. Please greet the audience. Say hello. I'm going to bring my other brothers in.
I didn't always hear you was breaking up, but I assume my name is Iymedu Kaalima. Ruai Music, Ruai Fitness, and Ruai as a whole is the company that me and my partner started. Which the Ruai represents the breath of life that is active in each one of us. So one of the things that we're into is just trying to bring about change on every level. Like anything that's not growing is dead. So we trying to help bring about growth, change, and all those different type of things. So
absolutely. And we'll talk about your vision for this in a couple of seconds. And shout out to Toy. We're going to bring in our other two brothers as well, brother Vladimir and also Carlos Henriquez, who in this space is definitely not a stranger. Brother Carlos has graced this screen plenty of times with me around the conversation of Black men. And so when brother I came up with the convo, I said, hey, there's a brother here that you would love to hear from and talk with as well. And so, Carlos, you're next on the screen, so I'll ask you to introduce yourself, and then we'll go with Brother Vlad as well.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening. I'm Carlos Henriquez, Black man born and raised in Roxbury, Boston, Massachusetts, living in two different cities. And I think we'll talk a little bit about how no matter what cities we're in, some of the same things are happening to and for and about. And so I really want to lend my voice because, at the age I'm at now, I like the brother said, if it's not helping us grow, if we're understanding what's healthy for us, both physically and mentally and spiritually, then we can get rid of the things that might not serve us as well and might not be a good show for those that are watching us, for our younger generation coming up behind us. So hopefully we can dive into some of those topics this evening. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. And our brother Vlad, who I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm enjoying his. And Carlos has this set up too often, but I'm just going to call out his setup there in the background. Go ahead, brother Vlad. Welcome to Java After Dark.
I'll take that intro. I'll take that intro.
And the voice. Y'all listening.
Oh, man. Okay, man. Jimmy making my head too big. All right. What's going on, everybody? My name is Vladimir Louissaint, author, motivational speaker, and empowerment coach. Born and raised in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm always going to be a 617 bridge kid. And what I do right now is I work with men. I help them embrace their trauma and pain, really find the power in their stories so they can discover their true identities and be present and effective leaders in their professional and personal lives. It's a huge passion of mine. I want to give another shout out to Dee Dee's Cry, Suicide Prevention and Family Support, as well as Spirit Story. I work with them in the Boston area as a coach, and I work with them. And yeah, I love this work. I love the fact that we can have this conversation. Men just need to be vulnerable. We need to find out our vulnerability. And I hope that in this conversation, I hope you
we got hold on, brother Vlad. We got a little audio. Was that on your end too, Carlos? Did it break up a little bit?
I could hear it. That's what happened when you first spoke, and it comes in and out.
Hopefully, it's not the platform. But brother Vlad, give us the last 30 seconds again.
Sure thing. So, in a nutshell, I work with men, help them find their discover their true identities, help them embrace their trauma and pain. But we all about new life, new generations, and breaking generational patterns of behavior. And so for men, it's really important for us to know who we are outside of our trauma. But it starts with embracing our stories. So love conversations like this. Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
That's a perfect segue into go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, sorry about that. Yeah, I did just want to give a shout out to Dee Dee's Cry as well, because that conference we met at a couple months ago, you know, I'm in Ohio, so things are somewhat different, especially when it comes to people of color. And just to see that type of movement, not only in men, but in men of color, really meant a lot. And just the connection and everything that she is doing is a beautiful thing. So I just wanted to make sure I gave that shout out, because this wouldn't even been possible without it. So
absolutely. And to brother Vlad's point, and Carlos has been, you haven't met yet, but Carlos was a part of the very first Mental Health While Black conversation in 2019, almost 6 years ago. Right. I think it was in May. I think it was in the month of May. So definitely we got to give love to our queen, Toy Burton. But brother, I'm going to come back to you based on what brother Vlad said about not always moving out of our trauma. And so for you all that are watching, the description, that is brother I's vision. That is what you saw on Facebook and in the description for tonight's show. So with that being said, brother, I'm just going to try to keep up and stick to our notes. We're going to give you all, we'll be here for about an hour this evening. And so brother I, again, if you could just reiterate kind of based on what brother Vlad said and in your write-up about seeing ourselves beyond our trauma. We're real about the issues, but seeing ourselves beyond that and doing the work. And that's where Carlos is going to come in with some tips and tricks and tools. Brother Vlad, our agenda tonight, brother Vlad is going to talk about his experience as a man through the lens of relationships. And Carlos is going to do tips and tricks. And then also brother I is going to keep us just focused on the fact of looking at what we used to call back in my youth worker days, asset-based, to getting to the power of who we are as men. So brother I, just give us a little context of why you thought it was important to start to see ourselves beyond the reality of our lives, but seeing ourselves in the next step.
Reason why I think that's important is because in order for you to really reach goals, especially long-term goals, there has to be a certain amount of foresight. And I feel like sometimes the way we live our lives, we don't allow ourselves that foresight. We see ourselves in one light as if that's the only light that we can be in. And we don't do the self-work sometimes to remove ourselves from that light and really see what we can actually achieve. In which every level or every new phase that you walk into, it makes you want a new phase. You know what I mean? So when you say, so seeing yourself beyond the traumas is knowing that the traumas exist, but wanting and being willing to do the work to get past the trauma so you can see what's on the other side of those traumas. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And Carlos, if I can come to you, because what resonated in some other combos we've had is doing the self-work and seeing yourself beyond the trauma in the journey. And so Carlos, if I can ask you, you know, you've said it before, but please reiterate for us again, why is it important for us as men to be healthy and address ourselves? Which part of that is seeing ourselves beyond our present situation?
Well, and I'll try to hit it real quick. To brother's point, you know, I think a common thing between Black men that we all hear when we're younger is that we have a very short life expectancy, or that we are we don't make it out of the environment that we're raised in, and then typically we hear those as self-fulfilling prophecies, right? So that inner talk, that self-voice, it starts from someone else's voice, whether it's your family, that can either lift you up or put you down. But eventually, as a man, I would hope, and most coaches and clinicians would want you to own that voice, hear that voice, and know that it's yours. And so, like Brother I was saying, if you can't visualize yourself outside of, if you can't say you're going to survive past 18 or 25, it'll shape your behavior. But if someone's raising you, if you can see yourself as a CEO, if you see yourself as, the top of the record game or the best basketball player in your city, if you can visualize it before you even do it, it opens up, we get really nerdy for a second, it opens up a neural pathway in your brain to start to believe it and to start building, reinforcing that. And then it becomes like lifting weights or working out in any other sport. The more you think it, the more you will do it. And the more you do it, the more that becomes who you are and your character. And that can work in the positive or negative. And it's no different than physical fitness. The more we train our brain to think the right thing or healthy things, the more we will eat better, the more we will act better, the more we will do better and live better. So it's really approaching that. When I think about my own shadow work, is not to think about the worst things that have happened to me, but what I want to do with those things and where I want to go moving forward, even though those things, in spite of those things happening in my life.
Vlad, if I can ask you what Carlos just talked about a little bit, and Brother I is encouraging us to get on this journey, and we're going to talk from different perspectives that you'll shed some light on. Carlos just kind of referred to a relationship with self. And I know that's one of the perspectives that you're able to speak to. So can you, in this vein, from our relationship with ourself and then any type of other relationships you want to get ready to touch on that may sometimes often influence our relationship with ourselves? And I saw Brother I is smiling, Carlos is going, and Vlad is like, Set the stage around first relationship with ourselves. And I'm just thinking about this, no matter what those external relationships or dynamics are, if our relationship with ourselves is a focus, we can center back to self. So anyway, go ahead, sir, not to put words in your mouth.
Nah, man, I think that was a great segue, Jimmy. The way I see it, it is our responsibility when we get into external relationships to show and role model how people should treat us. Judging by how we treat ourselves, it's going to dictate how our trajectory in those relationships, right? So if you've been through things, and it's something I really want to touch upon in the Black community, we're actually raising our consciousness now where people in this generation, and even, Generation Alpha, or is it Gen Z? Gen Z, geez, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're raising our consciousness, right? And we're realizing that the conversations that we swept under the rug generations prior actually are paramount to have now in terms of our self-development, in terms of the self-development of our children. And what I came to realize in my journey was that I had no idea who I was. And when you're in a relationship externally, whether it's a friend or a romantic relationship, you have to give up parts of yourself to be accessible. And if you yourself don't have access to those parts of yourself that are vulnerable, that are hurt, that have been shaped by traumatic experiences, shaped by abandonment, shaped by your, the things happening when you were a child, then you're going to have a really difficult time fitting into those relationships and actually deriving value from them. And listen, I'm a big proponent for that. Like, I'm just speaking from experience, Jimmy, right? And Brother I knows, we chop this up all the time. So, yeah, man, it really does start with embracing your story. And that could be as simple as you start writing in a journal, right? And we can get into best practices in a little bit. But the minute that I began to be able to tell my story raw, unfiltered, and as I saw it, as I experienced it, that's when I actually started peeling back those layers and understanding how I was and who I was in the relationships that I had.
Brother I, if I could ask you again, with this intent of wanting to ensure that we stay focused on the positive, at what point with yourself did something click and you made yourself a priority despite, dynamics with any other relationships? When did your relationship with yourself become priority?
It's funny. I was in a penitentiary sitting on my my bunk. This was like my fourth number or third or something, and I just been in and out the joint. And so I was sitting there and I just realized like this is not normal. Like this is not normal. It's not normal to share a bunk bed with a grown dude. Like it's not like you feel these type of things is not how normal people live. And so I wanted to see myself outside of those traumas, like we talked about a minute ago. And I'm like, I just want to be normal. I want to do what normal people do. Normal people don't do this. Like, you know what I mean? And so in order to do that, I had to begin to check in with myself. What is it that's causing you these issues that you keep going around in this circle? You know what I mean? And I really had to begin to address those. And it's funny because, you know, you always get a counselor when you're in prison anyway. But I wasn't taking the counseling seriously. Like I wasn't really trying to get to what was causing, you know, the issues, you know. And once I started putting myself first, like, you know what, I need to figure this out, you know what I mean, it began to really work. Like, you know, for once I like, because, you know, it actually began to really work. So, you know, that's kind of when it clicked for me. And since then I've been kind of on that journey. And like Brother Vlad said, actually just telling your story, right, and raw and uncut, and just getting it out and hearing it actually helps you overcome it. Because when you keep it stuffed in, you don't really hear it. Like, you know what I mean? So when you begin to hear it, it really helps you get past it. So that's when it clicked for me, really.
Carlos, if I may ask you, we've talked about this, I think, within the last 2 weeks on to 2 points, one by Brother Vlad and one by Brother I as well. Brother Vlad talked about we're changing the culture. He referenced to the generation before us didn't talk, we're talking. And then Brother I just talked about not seeing ourselves beyond the trauma. I forgot what the other piece was, but can you it's not being normal. I want to, and that Brother I know where you was coming from, but Carlos, if you could talk about what's normal for some brothers, a reality, but then also why we have to in this. Okay, go ahead. I know I didn't need to finish the question because your face said everything. Go ahead.
I mean, no, I'm listening to it because I'm thinking about how to really be honest in my response. You know,
please do.
This normal. I understand what Brother meant when he said normal, right? But I want us to all know that each one of us has our own set of normal. And that normal can change. We can create whatever that normal that we want it to be. So sometimes it takes looking at someone else and being like, you know, 95% of the people do get up and go to work 9 to 5. I want to get to that normal. And that's cool if that's your goal. Right. But I just want to make sure the brothers understand that we always control our normal. So, you know, even when I was thinking about when it became important to me, like when I was younger, I was very comfortable telling my story. My voice was loud, even as a kid. And even through high school, I was kind of, you know, boisterous and gregarious and the class clown. I could tell a story. It wasn't until I started having dark moments that I started to go inward and then lose my capacity to tell my story, right? Because I didn't have those spaces, whether it was, we talked before, whether it was my breaking up with my first girlfriend in high school, whether it was, you know, getting kept back in high school and feeling the shame from letting your parents down. That's when I started to go inward and spent probably, even as you saw me as a politician in the city of Boston, where I'm speaking publicly, but my private life, I had closed it off. And it wasn't until I got into therapy again for myself at probably like the age of 27, 28, that I started to go, oh, I need to figure out what I've been keeping packed away for the last 10, 15 years. I want to know why I don't feel this, or why I do feel this, or why, you know, and it's an ongoing thing. It's a really thing that I check. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday at a block party about when my father passed. It took me months to even be able to speak about it. I kind of just worked right through it. And then the brother just said something to me earlier, or said something to the whole group earlier. I'm listening to Pusha T's and The Birds Don't Sing, which is a song about their parents. I'm not sure if you brothers have heard it. Yeah. But one of the lines in there that hits home is, to me, is like, let your mess be a message. And it's like when you can speak to all the parts of you, privately and publicly, is when you have control. And when you are, for me, you're doing that shadow work, and you're really, you know, you're blazing your own path at that point, when you can speak to yourself and control that dialogue, and it's open. There's nothing hidden from yourself. That's the shadow work, the tips that I talk about.
Brother Vlad, if I could ask you, in the vein of something Carlos said, that things start early. There was a time where he told his story, and then brother I referenced to also being when incarcerated, you get a therapist, but oftentimes, let's talk a little bit about relationships. This has come up with Carlos. One example is with our parents, our mother, our father, those type of relationships. Can you, if you don't mind, shed some light on how those type of dynamics play into from childhood to how we form our morals and values if we were stifled, growing up?
For sure. I've done a lot of work about this, and I often, when I talk to men, one of the first questions I ask them when they're struggling with something is, what was it like growing up? What did you see? Because what we witness between our parents, or what we don't witness between our parents, is going to give us a blueprint, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, is going to give us a blueprint for how we show up in relationships later. So if you, for example, grew up in a home where there was a lot of arguing and there was a lot of dissension, your parents didn't sleep in the same room, they always argued, they always fought, there was domestic violence, there was abuse happening, there's all this chaos and dysfunction, well, then you're more likely to end up in a relationship that reflects that same experience. And the problem with trauma that's pervasive when it's untouched, right, is we will always return to familiar, even if the familiar is dysfunctional and actually counterproductive and maladaptive, right? So the body is, I think Carlos said it. We're gonna be some nerds.
Get nerdy. Let's go. Let's get nerdy with it.
Carlos gave us. He opened up the door. So I'm gonna use a word that is in biology class. Okay, the body's always trying to remain homeostatic, right? We always want homeostasis, which is a balance. Right. And so when trauma introduces itself, and trauma can introduce itself into your functional self as early as when you're in the womb. If your mother's is experiencing stress, there's research that suggests that your experience, your trajectory towards mental health issues, the way that you regulate yourself, the way that your body goes up and down, remains homeostasis, that starts all the way in the womb. So if there's all of those elements present, and then you grow up with your parents, and this is what is going on, that continues, then you're already at a deficit, right, in terms of relationships. And so what often happens for men, and let's face it, a lot of Black men, many of us grow up with single moms, and there are very few examples or very little access to male role models that look like us, that sound like us, and that give us hope for a different outcome, right? And so without healing those wounds, bro, we're just going to be mad at our mom or mad at our dad, and we're going to be reflecting that onto our partners, man. And we end up hurting everybody around us.
I was just getting ready to ask Brother I, and I'm going to ask, and because I know Carlos, his facial expressions just say everything to me. Brother I, if I could ask you to talk about from your experience as Brother Vlad got ready to introduce, where you want to share relationships with significant others, growing up, being hurt, well, oftentimes brothers won't admit that we're hurt, you know what I mean? But how has the external relationships influenced your relationship with you?
You know what? I feel like this. Okay, so long story short, ended up in, I grew up in the church. I grew up Pentecostal. I grew up with my mom and dad. All my sisters is by my mom and dad, and sisters and brothers. So we all grew up in the same house and that type of thing. And we grew up real religious. And so turns out, the church turned out to be pretty much a cult and just all type of stuff, right? And so the what kind of hit me, from that, the family broke up. I really didn't see my mom. I haven't still seen my mom in quite some time. I've seen her once or twice, but not like that. And so how it affected me so far as my relationship with me is it made me kind of abandon me. Like, right, if my own mom really didn't check in on me like all these years or whatever, I kind of did the same thing to myself, if that makes any sense. So I'm 100 going north, but I'm not checking in on me. I'm not caring that I'm crashing the whip. I'm not caring about none of this because I feel like there's a lack of care from the relationships that meant a lot to me from the beginning. So now that affected me in a way to where if they don't care, I don't care. You know what I mean? And it took me a long time to even realize that it was only me that I was hurting. That's the crazy part. It took me a real long time to realize that. So,
Carlos.
I listen. I love to listen to the self-discovery. That's why I'm making these faces, because to hear, like, for us to have these commonalities, like, 4 men who don't know each other, didn't grow up in the same, but there's so much in common about that. Like the brother was saying, like what we go through is gonna color our lens, right? That's how we see the world until we get a different lens. And so knowing what lens, that you view the world through, what's your bias? Am I biased? Like you said, I didn't get enough attention, or I got too much attention, and now I look forward in other relationships. Like everything we do comes from a programming. When the brother mentioned that the homeostasis, my friend and therapist, who is a therapist, she's not my therapist, had just put me onto that the other day. I was looking at something and figuring out your body. Like when I brush my teeth, I don't even relax when I brush my teeth. Like that's where stress comes out. I'm going ham, and I got an electric one. I don't even need to go. The wife walks in and was like, "What are you doing? Like, you just have to hold it." And I'm just like, "Nah, I gotta." And I'm every day I have to tell myself, "Yo, relax. You're just brushing your teeth. Like, chill out." And then I feel that energy subside. But that's what I'm to the point where I'm trying to do that with every single. Whenever I'm not in control of myself for any reason, I try to take control instantly. Whether it's my breathing. Sometimes you listen to a TV and a movie, and they build that movie, that suspense, and I feel my heart rate go up, and I'd be like, "Oh hell no, y'all ain't gonna control my heart rate with just." But everything that we listen to, that we see, that we eat, the vibrations we get from other people, and our relationships, what people say to us, that feeds your nervous system. It talks to you, right? And so, and if you don't get it back out, like when the brothers talk about journaling or talking or being in a men's fellowship group, if you can't get it back out in a positive way, you could find yourself going 100 miles an hour, crashing out. It could take just one person to say one thing for you to be like, you know what? I was already feeling like nobody cared. This person showed up at the wrong time. It's an end moment, as they say in the Boondocks. But you know what I mean? So it's thinking, the more we're aware of this, the more we're having these conversations with kids, with Generation Z and A, and the more fathers are telling their sons, "I love you," instead of, never hearing it and just saying, "Well, I kept food on the table," and that was, the more we begin to make those points shift, I think the better it is for all of us, our growth, our personal growth, and therefore our community and our family growth as well.
Yes.
Brother Vlad, or Brother I, you said something. Brother Vlad looked like he had a face to say something. So Brother I, you said something first. We're going to come to Brother Vlad for his just feedback to what Brother Carlos said. And then we're going to start really focusing a little bit on health, and then just sharing what it is that we do to kind of maintain ourselves, from references that Carlos made to points of crashing out, to also, I really want us to focus on what are the daily things we do proactively so that when lifes, we don't kind of catch up. You know what I mean? So Brother I, anything you wanted to just respond to what Carlos was saying, and then Brother Vlad, we're going to come back to you.
Oh no! I was just saying that was a well-made point. Yeah, but yeah, that's all I was saying.
Got you, Brother Vlad. Your face said. Now, did I mistake you? Because your face looked a little like Carlos's, like you wanted to give some commentary.
Yeah, no, Brother Carlos actually touched on something that's really important. So, for me, one of the most petrifying, like just terrifying experiences of my life that I both wanted and dreaded at the same time was becoming a father. I wanted to become a father so bad from the time that I was little, so I could rewrite the story, right? So I could do it differently. But by the time I became a dad, bro, I was sitting in that OR waiting for my wife to come out, for my son to be born. And when I went in there, I'm sitting there holding my man, and I'm petrified, and I'm blessed all at the same time, because I am just terrified of bringing those same experiences and hard emotions on him. And so when Brother Carlos said something about telling our sons that we love them, that's not something that I experienced being raised by Haitian immigrants, right? Because love was shown, not expressed. And there was no real conversation or acknowledgement that children need to hear that. And when they don't hear that, they don't expect it from other people either. They don't expect for people to love them as they are, right? And one of the things that I try to do, and I'm not even gonna say try. One of the things I do with my son, I'm adamant about showering him with love and affection. And that is, if I'm gonna be real, that was hard. That was hard, man. I had to train myself on how to do it, just like I'm trying to train him on how to experience it and receive it. And it's a beautiful thing. But I think what happens to a lot of brothers when we use the word crash out, that's new, right? I'm like, I think I mastered the crash out. Because at first I was like, when someone said crash out, I'm like, yo, what you crash your car or something? I got, hook that up.
It comes from the cash dummy.
Right? Like, yo, you crashing your cars? No, we need to talk about it. But I think the reason why a lot of brothers crash out is because they don't have a connection to a community. They don't have a platform like this. Like, you ain't even gotta be on Instagram or on social media talking about. They don't have a line of brothers that they can tap in with and say, hey, yo, bro, I'm hurt. Hey, yo, bro, I'm scared. And that's exactly what I had when I was in that OR. I was talking to my brother Darian, one of my prayer partners. I say, yo, brother, I'm scared. I don't think I belong here, man. I might just peace out like my dad did. And he's like, nah, you belong there. Nobody else can replace you. If I didn't hear that, and he didn't say, yo, brother, I love you. You matter. You need to be there. I might have still been there physically, but my mind, I would have left. So, yeah, man.
Let me ask you this, brother and Carlos and I have talked about this in other conversations, so I'm just going to put you on the spot. When you found out you were going to be a dad, just because brother Vlad brought this up, did you have that same fear? And if I could ask both of you to speak to this, Vlad, will come back to you. Presuming, well, you have a son right now, Vlad, so it'll be a different context. But brother can you tell us if you your children, and then were you afraid? And then is there a difference if you have a boy and a girl? Is there a difference in the fear from a boy versus a girl as a black man in this world?
So that's kind of funny because, sorry about that. I took my daughter out to breakfast this morning because her birthday is Friday, and I'll be leaving for Baltimore Friday. So, anyways, I took her out, and I was, we was talking. So that's funny you would ask that, but it's funny because I was like, Vlad, it's like I wanted to have a baby, but then when it was time to have a baby, I was scared. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it was a lot of different emotions. For one, I felt like I was too young. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I was 19. I had just graduated high school. Like, you know what I mean? It was a lot of moving parts. And the fact that she was a girl scared me more because dudes, we know how they living. Dudes know they ain't out here living. So I say that to say with it being a girl, that was a factor as well, and I just didn't feel like I could live up to it because I was telling you, I was already out of touch with my own self. So to be trying to have a child, and so, I mean, I don't think I was in my doors like 20 something years. Like this last time I got out like 15, God blessed our relationship to be mended, for us to be as close as we are and as close as I am with my grandkids. So, I'm glad I was able to make that up because my fear kind of kept me away. I tell her that all the time. I say, it's funny, you didn't know me all them years, but honestly, I'm kind of glad you didn't because I was a messed up dude. You probably wouldn't have liked me. Like, you know what I'm saying? I would have ruined the relationship. I came out better being gone and coming back than I think I don't know. But I just say at the end of the day, that's what I feel like. So
my authentic thought, and then Carlos, I'm going to either put you on the spot or discerning that you may, but I don't know if you had any questions that you wanted to check in on brother Vlad.
I got a couple of things that they made me think of that I think are worth talking to, but I'll wait my turn patiently.
No, you can go ahead and co-host.
I mean, I wanted to thank them. I wanted to thank them for being honest, right? Because that's something that we talked about. So let me follow their lead and be honest. So always wanted to be a father. Unfortunately, tried a couple times, lost. I lost a daughter that I was expected to have, but I remember when we were expecting, I remember the pride and the fear coming at the same time. And now I'm like I have a crew of like 12 dudes, and they're all most of them are dads now, and they're great dads, and they've been dads for a while. And even in that crew, I've never heard them talk about it. So, it was interesting to me. Like, there's no way I'm just feeling this, and they've never felt this. you know. And so I think that's something that we could talk about more in just community in our personal lives. And the reason why that's important is because as Black men, what you hear, the narrative is that Black men are deadbeat dads, even though that statistically is not true based on racial categories. That is kind of just they just decided to be out, and it doesn't speak to the human in all of us that has that fear. That, you know, brother said, you know, I have to learn how to teach my son. I have to shower him with love, even though that's not what I learned. Imagine having to teach somebody something that you weren't taught. So now you got to learn the lesson. You got to teach yourself how to teach at the same time you're practicing it. It's not an easy thing to do. So these are major lifts, and that's why I just wanted to congratulate them and say thank you for doing it. Because when I see my friends telling their sons they love them, I know, you know, my father was born in 36. I know he ain't get that from his father. And, you know what I'm saying, West Indian fathers didn't get it from their father. So it truly is breaking generational curses. It truly is changing narratives for Black men just by us figuring out, like we said in the beginning, who we are, but more importantly, who we want to be, and therefore who we want our sons and daughters to be. And again, once we change ourselves, then we change our family. And once our families change, then our communities change. And to me, that's just a cycle we need to keep building on, because we know what we were up against, and we've been up against and remain up against people that want to destroy that fabric of our community, even though we fight every day, Black men alongside Black women, to make sure that we're still here fighting every day.
Carlos, let me kind of in this segment start with you, because I haven't yet. When you talk about the change and getting on the journey and being that positive contributor to our society, the reality is that some of our brothers are dealing with everything that we've named here and more. You taught me more in politics that you go for the low-hanging fruit. And you try to do realistic things, and maybe this will get us on, Brother I, to your vision, where we walk away this evening with reality around some concrete things that you all did as Black men to get on the journey. Sometimes when we veer off a little bit, to get back on and stay on, and having that authentic sort of fishbowl conversation around getting on the journey and staying on the journey.
I guess I would answer that in the form of a question. I'll probably pass that along, because for me, and I'm going to ask, you know, other brothers, if y'all feel the same way, please let me know. I think we're going to speak about shadow work. We're going to, you know, I can speak to you about breathing and taking deep breaths and all these little things that I use as tools and tricks. But the first thing that I think happens is a decision, right? Even Brother Oz said, you know, at some point I just made a decision that I wanted to be normal. Something had to change. Something clicks, but that click, we call it a click, but it's a choice. Mm-hmm. You have to come into your conscious mind and say, all right, this is enough. I'm not doing this anymore, or I'm doing this. And that will set you on your next path. And I say it that humbly, because it's hard to get to still enough to even sometimes make that choice. Because when we're talking about the nervous system running and things you're used to, you know, there's some of us that can't fall asleep without there being some noise in the background. Why is that? I got to have the TV on. I got to have the music on. I can't focus my mind. If you turn off all that noise, I might not even want to hear my brain. Like, there's all kinds of obstacles blocking you from you. And if you could peel those away and then make a choice, then that gets you moving along that path. Now, I say in all honesty, anybody that's taking this path knows that you can quickly fall off that path. It's not easy to stay on that path. But once you've made that first step on it, at least, it's like a video game where the further you step, the more it starts to brighten for you. But the lights don't come on until you step in that room. You know what I mean? It looks dark. It looks scary. Like, I ain't going. I've never been in there before. But you step in and the light starts to shine. So that's at least how it works for me. Even when I'm thinking I'm emotionally intelligent and I fall off the path, I have to then reset all the way back to that. I got choice. I got to get back to the things that got me healthy the first time. And to me, it doesn't stop. I hope to do that to the day that I die. I hope I'm doing it. I hope I'm teaching it. And I hope people see it, like, oh, that brother resets well. Like, life is be kicking his ass, but he still gets, fall down 8, get up 9. That's the decision I think we have to make as individuals.
Brother may I ask you?
I don't know if that resonated with y'all,
It did.
Oh, I felt all pieces of that, man. I got something to say about that, but yeah. Brother
Right.
Brother Vlad, add something to that when you said you got something to say about that. And then if you can, and it's going to automatically put Brother I either in 2A or 3, but give us sort of a step 2. I'm taking notes, and the first one that Carlos said, and this is neither one of us clinicians, so we're letting you all know that we're just Black men that have had a lot of conversations and are continuing to have them. If there are any resources that you need, one of the things that you can do is call 988 here, at least in the state of Massachusetts. I don't know if that's across the country, but you can, in Massachusetts, you can call 988. I'll be in the background. Brother I looking for if 988 is the same number in Ohio as well. But Brother Vlad, if you could talk to what we've said, maybe a step 1, give us a little bit of what you would see as a step 2. And Brother I, get ready to add a 2A or step 3 based on what Brother Vlad said. We're going to do step by step in helping brothers just take a layman's approach to being healthy and recognizing our power as Black men.
Yeah, man. So there's something that Brother Carlos said that I really want to hone in on, and that word was reset, right? And whether if you've been in recovery work, and or whether you're just on the journey of recovering from trauma, or you're recovering from drug use or addictive behaviors, or whatever it is, I had a men's coach that gave me a really good piece of advice. And I would come and I'd say, hey, man, I'm straying off the path. Like I'm beating myself up over, right? Like imagine you're in recovery because you've been beat up and now you beat yourself up every time you get, you fail because you're trying to reset your nervous system, right? And it takes longer for you to do that than you've been doing it for a far shorter time than you've actually been enmeshed in the trauma, right? So we give ourselves not a lot of credit for what we're trying to overcome. But he said the goal isn't perfection. He said, your goal is to raise the floor each time, right? So going back to what Carlos said about resetting, if you're looking at your life, and I love metaphors because this is just how my brain works. If you're looking at your life and this is recovery, this is where you are optimally, and this is where you feel every time you fall, every time you stray off the path, every time you make a mistake, every time you whatever. The goal isn't for you to just never fall, because then you're setting yourself up for failure every single time, which is just going to compound and make it more likely that you're going to keep falling off the path. The goal is to raise the floor each time. So then instead of falling 50 feet, you're falling 40. And then the next time you fall, you're falling 30. And so your goal is to you're going to keep getting knocked down, but every time you get up, it takes a shorter time and less resources, right? Because you built the systems, you built the progress, or you'd get up, which brings me to step 2. The very first time that I even thought about therapy was when my wife asked me, boy, what's wrong with you? And she didn't say it in a derogatory way or an accusatory way. I knew that she was trying, and my wife's a social worker, so she was asking me, what is wrong with you? Literally as an open-ended question, like, I want you to think about that, right? I want you to think about what you've been through, because something is bleeding through and you don't know what it is. And I want you to explore that. And this is how many men get introduced to therapy or counseling, is when there's either an ultimatum because they're hurting somebody that they love, or there is something in their life that hinges on them getting help, right? And when I started going to therapy, telling my story, I realized through the years that this is not something that you go to for a year or two after you've been, 30 some odd years, 20 some odd years. Maybe you're not even in the trauma all that time, but you're enmeshed in the same environment that trauma placed you in mentally. You have to continue to do the work, but you can't do it alone. It is a personal, and I'm gonna try to explain it the best way I can. Your recovery work is personal. It's personal to you, but it is a communal affair, right? And where brothers crash out is they see, okay, maybe I got therapy, maybe I got this opportunity, maybe I got journaling, and that's all I need, or maybe I have religion, and that's all I need. You need to let people in on the journey, right? Because every single time I tried to recover on my own, I always failed. And what changed my life wasn't more therapy, wasn't intensive therapy. It was building a community of diverse support, which means I got my therapists, I got my homies, I got my prayer partners, and I've got men that I could tap in. Like these brothers, I can tap in with you every day. Brother Iymedu taps in with me. And I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. Let me tap in with you. I'm like, all right, cool.
Right.
I appreciate that. Because there was a point in my life, and if I'm gonna be real and honest, there was a point in my life where I didn't want to be here. And I had to learn how to ask for help even when I think I didn't need it, because that split second, it only takes a couple of days. It only takes a couple minutes, a couple of hours of you being in that negative environment in your mind of nothing matters, nothing's going to work, nobody cares, for you to slip back into a place of no return. So that's how important it is for you to build a community support.
So far we've heard the first step is to make a decision. It's a decision and make a choice. And we did acknowledge that it's not easy for everybody to get to that point, but basically it does boil down to one day, all right, I'm going to take this first step. 1A I heard there from you, Brother Vlad, was to be real about not setting the goal too high, because it sets us up for failure. We will fail, or we will be faced with challenges. Fail, words matter. But each time, and Carlos taught me about this around some other things, around muscle memory. Each time that we either see the situation coming, or even though we see it coming and we didn't use the tips and tricks from the last time, we fail or we fall. You don't fall the same amount of feet or as bad each time or as hard. Each time we do better, we do better. So recognize the progress. And one of the ways that we can recognize the progress is by being in a community of diverse support that will hold you accountable, that will encourage you, and that will challenge you as well, and that will build you. And so that's what we got so far for our first steps, as we're walking away with real tips and tricks and tools to walking in our power as Black men. All right, Brother either 2A or 3, what is it that you would add to the choice and decision, being in a community of diverse support? What would you say is next for Black men to walk in their power?
Honestly, I think it's to give back, right? And what I mean by it's kind of going off somewhat what Vlad was talking about growth being a process. But one of the biggest things, because I'm in theology school, I got a men's group, a couple men's groups, and I go to men's groups, and I'm in Vlad's drop in there. So with that being said, what I realized the biggest thing in this journey is giving back is what keeps you, right? Is like, man, I didn't realize I go to a church, and and one of the things about the church that really inspired me is they make you want to like serve, because everybody is serving and you just want to do something. You're like, well, shoot, I want to serve too.
Like, sing in the choir.
You want to do something.
Yeah, y'all hogging all the blessings, man.
You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I've learned I always wanted to work in like a group home or like a soup kitchen, because I was in a group home. So I went back to the group home with the church and fed the people and stuff. And it was just one of the most amazing things, man. And I found after community, being present in that community, like part of like Vlad was saying, I reach out because I'm happy to have somebody reach out too, because I've been a loner for years, man, like a long time. So we were talking about earlier, that some stuff you go to do, it don't feel normal because you're not used to it. So I forced myself, even through sometime that it being hard, to get better at doing it, because that's the only way really to get better, is to do it. You know what I mean? Like we all kind of established, a lot of times Black men don't really have, I don't why exactly, I can't all the way pinpoint. Somebody did, and I don't know if it's just Black men, but somebody say as you get older, by the time you're 50, you might have one good friend. So I'm 50. So with that being said, so I just say I don't know if that's the case, but what I mean is actually practicing loving on each other takes work.
Yeah.
Like Vlad said, it's not normal. So to reach out and say, how you doing, brother? Just checking in on you, man. I ain't want nothing. You understand what I'm saying? That goes a long way, and that's part of giving back. You know what I mean? He pouring into you pouring into him, and it keeps us empowered. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say would be the third step.
Thank you. What we have so far is the first step being a decision and a choice. Again, no matter what you're going through, being real about that. Not so much no matter what you're going through, but being real about where we are, being sensitive to the fact that for a lot of folks, it's not that easy just to make the decision. But if you can try to make the decision, do so. One way that you can, and these two kind of play off each other based on what my brother I just said. But the second step that brother Vlad said was to be in community of diverse support. And I think number 3 here does number 2. It's a part of number 2 and does number 2, because if what these brothers are doing right now, neither one of them are being compensated. They are volunteering their time. We had a phone call. We sent emails. This is a form of the giving back, to our community. And y'all know I pull on Carlos at least 6 times a year. And so this is part of the giving back, to community. So that's a part of it as well. Carlos, I would ask you if you had, just because I consider you maybe our closest to resident clinician, what is it, any feedback with Vlad into what brother I said as well, based on those steps?
Yeah, I just want to, and I'm going to kind of use you as a metaphor, right? So the second step of having a diverse supportive community, like I think you nailed it in the way you phrased it, but it can go deeper than that, right? So when we're on this walk, this is a rare walk. We don't want it to be rare, but it's a rare walk. So when I realized, okay, I'm going to therapy now, and have a bunch of friends who were going to therapy at the same time. But my therapist was like, you need 3 or 4 people that when you're starting to slide, you can call and they can pour into you. And they need to know that they're on standby. So then I have, obviously I put my mother on the list. That was an easy one, right? She's always going to be on standby. But I really had to call a couple of Black men. And I'm blessed. I have over 10 friends that I've known since we were in the 8th grade. We're going on like 30, 35 years. So I'm blessed. But even in that brotherhood, I had to pick out the ones I believed that I could count on, that I could be most vulnerable with, that I could say, yo, I'm feeling jacked up, man. I haven't got up off the couch in 3 days, man. I haven't taken a shower in 2 days. And I knew they had the sensitivity to be like, hey, do you need me to come by? You need me to just sit on the phone with you, remind me of who I am, who I used to be, who I want to be. And even in that, sometimes they couldn't rise to the occasion. I had to bench one and put another one on standby. Like, it's really intentional work. And I can't stress enough of how much it is training. It's just retraining it. So what I was going to use as a metaphor is like, you've been doing this show for like 5 years now, right? You set up faster now than you used to set up when you first were getting the show done. And you're less nervous now during that setup. Right now, I don't know if you've paid attention to it, but pay attention to your body next time you set up your equipment. Like, now you know where everything is. You know what I'm saying? If there's a little technical tweak, you don't spaz out. Now you're like, hold on, it might be the platform. I'm going to tweak this in the background. You still get a little nervous, still reaction. But what I'm saying is, because you've trained, it's no different than if you were a baseball player. You don't just start hitting the ball. You have to hang around a bunch of other dudes that swing at 100-mile-per-hour ball too. And as they get better, you get better. And they encourage you to be coming to practice again today. Yeah, I'll be there again today. That's the kind of community that you have to be intentional about building. Because I don't want dudes just to be around people that aren't encouraging or that are taking them the wrong way. You know what I mean? So having that, and then really kind of seconding that men's fellowship group was what really opened the door for me before I even got into individual therapy. There's something about being around men, Black men, being vulnerable enough to show you, whether it's our soft side, weak side, our human side, is really lets you know that you're not alone. Because many of us, I'll say, feel alone, whether you're 18 or 50. And what we tell ourselves is, I'm born alone, die alone. I can do it. I can adapt to it. I can adjust to it. And we can, but that doesn't mean we should. So having those communities, sometimes you can just go sit in those men's fellowship groups and you don't have to say nothing. You can just listen. And sometimes you leave full and you're like, next week, I got something to say next week. Like, I've been listening for 2 weeks. He was speaking about me. He don't even know that I'm dealing with the same thing. Or you might grab him outside and be like, brother, thank you for that. I'm going through the same. You just never know what comes out of those groups. But I'm telling you, it's always something good. It's always something good when brothers get together when in love like that. So to hear them detail step 2 or 3, I endorse that wholeheartedly, because I've lived it. I've practiced it. I know it works.
Thank you, Carlos. We're going to get Vlad. I'm coming to you, and then Carlos. I'm going to come to you, let you respond, and then maybe give some closing remarks. Carlos, if you wanted to add anything and give some closing remarks, please be ready to do so. And then we'll have Brother I close us out. But I just wanted to acknowledge the Queen again. 988 that we just mentioned a few minutes ago. If you feel you may not have this tribe or brothers to talk to, there is at least this number. And then Vlad, at some point before we go tonight, we want to mention the men's group as well as Duty's Cry. But Vlad, please respond to what Carlos is saying and give us your closing remarks.
Now, for sure, something you said, Brother Carlos, really, really resonated in my mind when you were talking about how you had those 10 men that you could reach out to. And within those 10 men, you had to pick which ones that you could have on standby if you were in crisis. Let's use that word crisis, right?
Yeah.
And that's important because let's face it, one of the things I feel like plagues Black men in particular, men in general, but one of the things that plagues the way that we've been socialized to interact with other men is superficiality. Many men just have superficial relationships. Like, like, I'm at the point where, listen, I don't have beef with you if you like sports, but I don't talk about sports with men anymore. I just don't, right? I don't really care what LeBron's doing. I don't really care what Tom Brady's doing. I care about how you're doing because I feel like we've been socialized to have superficial conversations so that we don't actually have to reinforce the fact that we are vulnerable beings. We are human beings that feel, that experience, that get, I don't care how big your muscles are. I don't care how much money you got in your bank account. We are all susceptible to the same damage that anybody else is. But the problem is because we have superficial relationships, we don't, by keeping those relationships superficial, we automatically count ourselves out of that support. So I would encourage brothers that, listen, if you've got homies and you can't tell your homie that you are struggling without fear that homie will clown you or that homie will embarrass you or even at the best minimize your experience, then you need to get new homies or you need to have a different conversation with them. Because let's face facts, 6 million men each and every year, 6 million men, just give or take, experience depression, but only 1 in 3 of them will actually express that need to get help, will actually even go the step further, take that first step, right? Take action, like Brother Carlos said, and get help for that. That's a problem. And I think that's indicative of there not being enough safe spaces. So that being said, the work that we do with Duty's Cry, I run a group called Man to Man with Duty's Cry every second Tuesday of the month. And it's a safe space for brothers of color. And it's a safe space for Black men to build community and do exactly what we're doing here right now, to break spiritual bread, right? And to be vulnerable. Dog, like I don't want brothers to crash out needlessly, and we are, and it's because when we're still fighting, we're fighting the tide that's shifting, right, Brother Jimmy? So the tide is shifting for brothers to actually win in what matters, and the way that we do it is not by reinforcing negative stereotypes that keep us in that system of hustle, grind, and death early. It's just, it doesn't have to be that way, right?
Did you just say hustle, grind, and death early?
Hustle, grind, and death early. We are hustling to the grave.
I get what you. I've just never heard it articulated.
That's what when I think of. When I think of, right, Jimmy. When I think of what men are doing, what we're socialized, what we're told, what we're telling our sons and our nephews and our homies to do, the grind is prioritized over the self. And we don't even know why we're grinding half the time, but we're just grinding, trying to achieve, trying to accumulate. Before you know it, you got all these trophies, you got all these cars, and men are still crashing out. So clearly it's not working. What does work, as Brother Carlos said, is community. Because there's a difference between a man who has accolades and difference in a man who has a community and a sense of self. And you'll see it.
Yes, very much so.
Go ahead, Carlos.
No, brother, I've been patient. I'm trying to step back and let someone else step up.
At the end of the day, this is how it's supposed to go. This is the I'm on along for the ride. I'm loving it. You know what I'm saying? So do your thing. You know what I mean?
No, but I mean, these are nice. These conversations. I hope that people that are listening to this conversation, I hope this sparks them in conversation, right? I hope a Black man hears this conversation and has one conversation like this with a Black man that they know. And that, or brings it to the barber, has the courage to bring it to the barbershop, or has the conversation next time they're watching a sports game during a commercial break or halftime, like, how's everything going with you, man? Ask about that man's fan. Like, we have to the world does a great job of dehumanizing us. The world does an amazing job of dehumanizing Black men to the point where we have become agents of that. Like when we walk past each other and we put on the mean face because we all in defensive mode, we can be the only ones that can stop doing that. No one else is going to start showering Black men with love. The women have done their part, continue to do their part. But for it to be community, men have to be able to see another man and be like, hey, if you can't tell another man, and I remember having men like this in my life, like Reverend Charles Stith, who used to be a popular pastor in Boston. Hey, young man, young blood, you look sharp today. Hey, you're looking clean today. I see you, young man. If we can't give positive affirmations to men that we don't know that are unrelated to us, the fact that we can't do that says more about us than the other men in our community. This means there's something that's grown cold in us or something detached us from our sense of happiness and joy that we can't, hey, I like your sneakers. It has to be us that leads it. So I'm hoping that people take these tips and try them for themselves in their shadow work, in their private time, but also, practice this ish publicly. It does feel good. It does feel good to be free with your emotions and be able to walk and talk in them and feel comfortable in them. Like, James teases me about, ever since you went through that trauma and came out, I feel like Andy Dufresne when you would go through that creek and come out clean on the other end. You stand there like, yeah, I do feel free. I do feel different. I feel transformed. I still had all those experiences that I'm not erasing them. And my therapist said, would you erase any of those and take them back? Nah, but I'm happy where I am now. And that means the world to me. And I want other men to feel like that because I think it'll make them better brothers. That's my goal. Better brother, better friend, better uncle, better fathers for the fathers. That should be the goal. And if you're envisioning that, these are the steps you can take to help to be that in community with others.
Carlos, that was perfect to give to Brother I for our closing remarks as he who had the vision for us to have. And this is one of Carlos and I committed. We're going to do what we do, but Brother I and Vlad can come in. I already got a couple of texts talking about, Brother James, I got something to say too. When you going to have me on? And so, we're committed, to holding these spaces for brothers because it even in virtual, just listening. And I mean, just so you guys know tonight, there is impact. This young man said here, them talking about Black men's therapy, safe spaces to be vulnerable. I look forward to sharing out that info, name of groups, links. Jimmy mentioned a 988 number. Great thing to know. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting what's out there that we don't know about. And the last thing I'll say is that one thing that we've been very intentional about is that we recognize, I think this is what with Joey one night, I talked to you, Carlos, is we've realized we're not as it's not as bad as it may seem often. As Vlad started to say, there is a trend, there is an uptick, there is an increase of Black men paying attention to their mental health and to their health. And so I just wanted to make sure that you all know that we are having impact. We're going to continue to have these conversations. Brother I, thank you for being the visionary, particularly for this one. And the closing words are yours. Outside of that, today's Sunday. Is today Sunday?
Today's Sunday.
Regular Java. We'll see y'all tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Once Brother I finishes, we're out of here. And we will let you know when we'll have the next conversation. Brother I.
Before, just to close up, once again, I do want to give a shout out to Dee Dee's Cry. And one of the things that I hear her speak about with that is that she wasn't seeing resources and these different things for mental health in the brown and Black communities. And that kind of stuck out to me because that's what the whole RUA and this whole thing is about. To get together a team of men, even on clinician levels and these type of levels, things in the space of what Carlos is doing and what Vlad is doing, men as a team, no man as an island anyways. So get a team of men together that can bring these different components to the youth. Like my heart goes to the youth because one of the things I think youth don't really embrace is time because you're young. so time don't really seem like a thing. And so a time not well spent is time wasted. So would really like to be that catalyst, along with others, and to help to those that we can avoid those pitfalls that we may have went through, or that we may have seen others go through, that can save them a lot of time, you know what I mean, and delays in their life. So with that being said, I'm just really happy with the talk, and we're going to continue to talk about it, as you said. And I just think the more we talk about it, and the more we get it out there, and the more we come together, the more momentum we get and more change we make, you know. So
thank you all for being with us tonight. Don't forget that you're able to call 988, and that is a national number. Don't forget. And Vlad, before we go, what is it's once a month or once a week for the
Yep, every second Tuesday of the month, man to man. If you go to DD Cry's Facebook, I think somebody dropped a link in the chat. Man to man, drop through the Zoom links there. You can register, and every second Tuesday of the month, you know where to find us, man. Come and break bread. Come get in community and check in.
Also, on other Tuesdays of the month, Yard Time has a men's group as well at the Tobin Community Center that I believe starts at 6 or 6:30 as well. So we have DD's Cry on the second Tuesday, first, third, fourth, and fifth Tuesday. Sound like we in church. First, third, fourth, Tuesday. Brother Joey Bennett over at Yard Time, and there are others as well, Brother Stanley Green in Jamaica Plain and others. And so thank you all for being with us tonight. And brothers, thank you, and I appreciate you all. And others, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.